I've lived in Lough Neagh, the shores of Lough Neagh all my life. I go out there with the dog for a walk, and it's never, come back over the last, let's say 10 years ago, 5 years ago, always was a murky colour because of the amount of crap that's pumped into it. This day, the water was crystal clear, and a week later then, there was these rafts of algae 2 foot in diameter floating about, and from then on, it just got worse. And
it will take 20 years to clean this lake if we start this year. So there is no quick fix. But if we don't, then the situation will go from hypertrophic to, well, basically, you've just got a septic tank with an open lid.
Hello and welcome to the Ireland on the Fly podcast about the people and places of fly fishing in Ireland. You may have seen the disgraceful stories in recent weeks about the terrible pollution of Lough Neagh that has been occurring unabated and which has been poisonous for humans and animals since May. Lough Neagh is the largest freshwater lake in Ireland or the UK, and due to an overload of nutrients, with agriculture mainly responsible, scientists are saying it could take 20 to 30 years for the lake to recover. On this week's episode, we find out how this was allowed to happen, how it can be stopped, and what it has meant for local anglers as well as local communities around the lake. I'm delighted to say we're joined by Dr. Les Gornall, who did his PhD on aerobic digestion and worked with Professor Brian Wood on Lough Neagh, and also by Seamus Donnelly, who's secretary of the Moyola Angling Club on the Moyola River, which flows into Lough Neagh. And while Lough Neagh would not be known for its angling, Seamus has caught fish on it, fly fishing from a drifting boat. And Les, you might first give us an overview of the size and importance of Lough Neagh on the island of Ireland.
Lough Neagh is by far and away the biggest freshwater lake in Ireland, and in fact in the UK it's the biggest, and in European terms, it's about the 33rd largest body of water inland. It's of international importance. It really feeds the migrating birds from Greenland and from Canada. There's geese coming in from Canada. There are birds coming in from Scandinavia. The real stars of the show, though, are swifts from South Africa. And they will fatten up on the chironomid flies here. They take them on the wing, and when they're migrating back to South Africa, they don't land. Their entire flight from here to South Africa is fueled by the chironomid flies at Lough Neagh. It's a Ramsar site. It's a site of special scientific interest. The surface area is a fraction under 400 square kilometers, and the catchment consists of several very large rivers, the Moyola, Main, the Blackwater. The main river coming into the south side is the River Bann, of course, the Upper Bann that flows through the loch, and in a sense, the loch could be regarded as the floodplain of the River Bann, and it exits through the Lower Bann into the ocean just outside Coleraine near Castle Rock. In terms of bird life, it's spectacular. In terms of fish life, it not only has the dollar and trout, and is the, if you like, the conduit for salmon for breeding purposes, but it also has a unique fish in the pollen. And the pollen is sometimes described as a freshwater herring that perhaps was stranded at the last ice age. We don't really know. And of course, the biggest eel fishery in Europe for the European eel is based at Tunbridge, and it supports commercial fishing, for perch and roach, which are, I think, introduced species, but mainly for these wonderful eels, which have a great gastronomic following in Europe.
They do, certainly. God, when you put it in terms like that, it just goes to show, I mean, just not even the fish side, but like the bird side and everything. It's a phenomenal piece of water, and it's very important, not just to the fish and, as you say, the bird. But okay, so not to go too scientific, but can you tell us what's gone wrong? What's wrong at the moment with it?
Well, Northern Ireland has a very significant agricultural industry. We have a population of 1.9 million, and at the moment, we feed the protein. We produce the protein for 10 million people. So we're almost 2 million people feeding 10 million people. Now, that's an enormous amount of activity. The biggest activity, of course, is cattle. We have pigs, we have poultry, we have some other minor animals, but by far the biggest livestock mass, as a kind of body weight, is cattle. And these cattle are producing about 16,400 tons of phosphorus a year, which goes into the soil. The soil has now become overloaded. And so whatever goes into the soil generally leaves the soil, and where it leaves is in the drainage ditches, which run down to the tributaries of Lough Neagh, and the phosphorus ends up in Lough Neagh. The problem with that is that algae are very tiny little wonderful organisms that actually created the Earth's atmosphere. They fix nitrogen from the atmosphere. They're special within the great history of our water and atmosphere connections over the millions of years. And a particular algae called Microcystis produces a liver toxin of incredible strength called microcystin. And this year, 2023, we had a bloom. And a bloom means a massive, almost uncontrolled growth of these blue-green algae, which are toxic, to the point where if a dog went in to catch a ball and then came back out, licked its fur, there's a very good chance that it would be dead in 24 hours. It's harmful to humans. It's a skin irritant. It's an eye irritant. It produces hydrogen sulfide as a respiration gas in the life cycle of the algae. And hydrogen sulfide is one of the most toxic gases known to humans. When hydrogen sulfide is breathed into the body, it loses an ion. It becomes HS minus, and that has the same toxicity as cyanide. So this is a really unpleasant set of circumstances. The bottom line is the pollution from sewage, septic tanks, and agriculture has accumulated so much in the lake that the eutrophic status of the lake since the year 2000 has gone off the red scale. It's now known as a hypertrophic or hypereutrophic lake. There are very few lakes that are in this condition. It's extremely highly polluted. And we think it's got there because there has been a dash for growth in the agricultural industry, and they grew the amount of food being imported into the country. They grew the amount of cattle and pigs and poultry, but they didn't grow the surface area of land on which to spread the slurry at the same time.
And ergo, that's the reason we have the problem. God, yeah. Seamus, I'll bring you in now. Just after hearing that, there, like Seamus, you're at the Moyola Anglers. How have you seen these problems in your locality or around the lake or the river?
Well, Tom, for the first time, I live about six miles away from Lough Neagh, and we have always looked at you guys and Corb and Mask, with envy and shieling, saying, you guys down there are fit to go out and fish for your brown trout and the lochs, and we could never do that because we're always told the lochs are dirty, they won't see flies, they won't see this and that. It has been tried before. Various different people have went out trying to catch dolphin, but the main thing was that the loch was that dirty they couldn't get them. But for some reason, well, we know the reason now. The zebra mussels over the last couple of years, the loch is starting to clear, and I'd heard reports of a few guys out trolling their palas up and down the shores at Ballyrunning near us, getting results. And a guy in our fishing club told me, I was out fly fishing and caught a couple of dolphin. And I thought, no, you didn't. And I thought, then he sent me photographs, and I thought, no, this can't be true. So I said to my friend I fished with, I said, we'll take the boat up, and we'll take Ronan up with us, and we'll give us a go. And we're sort of reluctant to do it, but Ronan agreed. And he says, come on, we'll go. So went up on the end of May, Tom, and worst conditions, bright sunshine, no breeze, and we went up above. Well, not say the location because he wouldn't want me to tell you exactly where we put the boat on. But
I'll just put a big beep in the background, but you can tell me later. It's okay. Your secret's safe with me, Seamus. Don't worry. Not a soul.
We put the boat on, Tom, and we went out. And to be honest, I said, we'll wait here for a couple of hours. We'll give us a run just to say we've done it. That's it. To say we've went out here and done it. So we chugged out of the bay, and within 30 seconds, I heard a splash behind me. I looked back, and there's this big ring, and I said, "Jeez, the trout just was behind us." And so it's all right. 5 minutes later, there I saw this fish head and tail in front of me. And I said, "Did you see that? Did you see that?" And your man, he said to us, "Oh, they're on today." So he was rubbing his hands, and we could see the clarity of the water. And the guy looked, and I thought, this water's crystal clear here. So we fished, I'd say, probably 45 minutes. I put on a humongous, and because here, but I've listened to enough of your podcasts. Listen to what's talking about the humongous.
I'm not going to call you a purist. It's okay. All right, it's okay.
So I've been doing it quite well in humongous this year in different places. So I said, I put on a humongous, and I put on another big black lure, which was called a Badger Matuka, one of Davy McPhail's. One I got off his website a while back, and again, it works good for the stockies and that over the winter. So I put it on the dropper, fishing away, and next thing, bang! I was into this fish. Like, Jesus, I'm into a fish. Rod bent over, Tom. Dolphin on the river. The dolphin on the river won't give you a serious fight. They're not like a wild brown trout at £2 will give you a lot better fight than a dolphin at £2. But this boy took off. Rod bent over, and I could see him. He was down 6-7 foot into the water. I could see him crystal clear, and got the fish in, and couldn't believe it. I think we got a fish. We've got a fish. It's true. And first thing that through my head was, this could be unreal. I need more of this. So that's all right. We fished on a bit, and then it was getting near the time I had to get back home because I had promised to do something later on that evening. But we were chugging back in again, and we fired the flies out the side of the boat. And my mate Tommy, next thing, he hooked the fish, and the boat was moving quite fast. At this point, he hooked the fish probably around the same size, lovely dolphin. He had a great fight with it, and then I says, I'll try this too. So I threw out the hardly purest, by the way, definitely not the kind of things that throw them with flies that the purest would look down on us. So I caught a second one, same size,
yeah,
and like really we were on the water, Tom, 2.5, 3 hours, and back in again. On the way home, I just said to myself, we need a 19-foot boat. I need to buy a 19-foot boat. I need a 50-horse engine. And this thing is going through my head. I'm going to have to buy this. This is unbelievable. So the following morning, I actually rang the guy in Two Fishery, who's the business development officer, and I used to work with him. And I give him a buzz, and I says, look, I'm straight up with you here. I was out in the loch yesterday. I said, I caught 3 dolphin. Just letting you know that it's there. Do you understand what you have on your doorstep here? I says, we put the fish back, by the way, and he said to me, look, we know this is going on. We do know this is happening. He said, there's no problem with you going out there. I know you're a genuine angler. You put the fish back, there's no problem. We probably will look at maybe next year, the following year, with a license for doing this sort of stuff. So he said, but I just thought, this could be massive. So 2 nights later, we went back out again with a different fella, and out, I'd say no less than an hour. He didn't want to go out, but he's a good friend of mine. And I says, you have to come out. You have to come out and see this here. So we went out, Tom, and I'd say we're maximum out on the water an hour and a half, and there's 3 of us in the boat. 2 of us turned a trout each, and your man who didn't want to come out, and he scolded me, cursed me up and down. What are we even out here for? Just a bright sunshine. There's no breeze. There's nothing. He hooked one. Now, he had him on for about 10 seconds. And then it's like that sort of feeling, yourself, whenever you have a guest out in a boat and you're thinking, nothing happened here, nothing happened here. Next thing, bang. And his whole facial expression just tells you, this is fantastic. So the following week then, Tom, I got permission to explore the northern shore of Lough Neagh. Because these trout were found out that the best place to locate them was over 4 to 20 foot of water over rock. That's really cool. So I had acquired a map of Lough Neagh, a rough map of someone drawn. I highlighted all the places where rock and everything. Sought permission to get into a quay up in the northern shore, and myself and my boat partner Tommy went down just to investigate it. But as we came out of the quay, I could see all this green stuff. This is a week later. Maybe 2 foot rafts of we says, that's algae. Where'd that come from? And even in around the bay we were in, there was quite a lot of growing. We end up steady for an hour, didn't even fish that much, because every time you're pulling the flies back in, you're pulling wee bits of algae in.
Yeah. You can't fish through it.
Yeah. So that was probably the first week in June.
Mm-hmm.
The following week after that, that's whenever the whole thing started really getting worse and worse, and that was the end of the fishing for us.
And that was this year. So that was you caught them this year. But it's a pity because, and when you caught the first couple of fish, the water was actually quite clear that day, was it?
Oh, fantastic. I mean, we could crystal clear. Within
what depth could you see to?
I could see it was like shilling. I had shilling once, and I was told
it's clear.
Yeah, that's how clear it was. Now I've lived in Lough Neagh, the shores of Lough Neagh all my life. I go out there with the dog for a walk, and it's never, come back over the last, let's say 10 years ago, 5 years ago, it's always a murky colour. Always was a murky colour because of the amount of crap that's pumped into it. But this day, the water was crystal clear, and a week later, then there was these rafts of algae 2 foot in diameters floating about. The following weekend, it just got bigger and bigger, and from then on, it just got worse. And back to what Les is saying then.
No, good that you got it, good actually that when you saw Sheelan clear as well, because I've been on Sheelan when it's been clear, and I've been on Sheelan when unfortunately there's been an algal bloom on it as well. So it's not completely clear, but at least you got to see it when it was clear. But Seamus, would you just tell people that wouldn't know? I mean, to be honest here, people that see Lough Neagh from down here and they think, you'd be fishing it, but that's not how you get the dollar in there. You wait for them to run your rivers. Is that what you do?
Yeah. So I'm the secretary of the Moyola River. We have a club with 500 members. We have 27 miles of water. So we have a pretty good brown trout fishing, really good brown trout fishing. But the fun for Lough Neagh rivers which the big rivers that run into Lough Neagh, the Ballinderry, the Moyola, the Main, the 6 Mile, the Blackwater, the Glenavy. The fun starts from them sort of mid-June, and next thing the first flood, early June, mid-June, first flood, the guys are out after the Dullahan. So basically, it's sea trout fishing, Tom.
That's what it's like, isn't it? It's like Lough Neagh is the sea for them.
Yeah,
and they return there to feed, and then they just start running from mid-June, is it?
Yeah. Well, I got last year. I got my first Dullahan on the 4th of June.
Right.
Quite a way up the river at night. Now, night fishing is fantastic. A lot you can catch them during the day on a salmon fly or a big trout fly. The guys are now on the 6 Mile. There's guys there like Michael McGuigan, Derek Bell, who are adapting now with the nymphing. The pimp and nymph. They're fantastic at that. I just haven't got onto that yet. That's my goal for next year. Some of the guys in our river are at it and been quite successful. But you can fly fish for them, spin for them, worm for them. But unlike sea trout, normally the big sea trout run the rivers first of all, and then the smaller ones come later on. Or Dullahan might be the other way around. So you'll get the wee shiny boys, with 3/4 of a pound to a pound and a half. They're wicked. You hook them wee boys. They're pure sea trout. They just are bright silver, and they're wicked. Great wee fighters. They come first, and an odd decent sized fish in it. And then as the season goes on, the bigger ones follow on.
They can go big, can't they?
Oh, absolutely. The biggest one I saw so far on our river this year was 13 pound.
Right.
13 pound.
Wow.
Yeah. We if you Google Dullahan and hit images, probably I think it's now the 3rd or 4th photo across is my brother-in-law Peter Walls, who caught a fantastic Dullahan with 10 3/4 pound on a wee size 12 shrimp fly quite a few years ago in Castledolston. But that was the most beautiful. I just happened to come along, got a lovely photograph of it before he put it back. Fantastic looking beast of a fish. On the 6 Mile, the guys are getting really big fish. Derek Bell there has got some fish up to 20 pound at night. When they seem to come later on in the season. But this year, to be honest, on the Moyola, we haven't had a great season.
Have you noticed, let's say, as the lake is becoming more, as Les said, they're hypertrophic now. Have you noticed a drop in the numbers, and I'll get back onto Les about this, maybe that won't happen straight away, but have you noticed a drop in the numbers this year of Dullahan?
Yes, big time.
Yeah, right.
Now, is it the fault of the algae? I don't know, because this year we have, I spoke to quite a few of our lads, and they're not doing great. Maybe half of what they got last year. I spoke to lads from the River Main there last week. Stevie Munn, text Stevie. Stevie says terrible. Text guys in the 6 Mile. Some of them saying terrible. Some of them saying a good run. But I suppose it depends. The people who put more effort into who are able to go during the day. Unfortunately, I have a thing called work, which stops me from getting out as much as I want to get out.
It's a 4-letter word, Seamus.
It is. So absolutely. Yeah. So, but what they're all saying is that the big fish that we should be getting late August, them big 8, 9, 10 pound fish, they haven't appeared now.
Right.
They haven't appeared, and we've caught quite a few fish that are skinny. A lot of people are reporting skinnier fish this year. A Dullahan is a well-made-up fish. They put on a lot of weight in the loch, even after a year, 2 years. So plenty of feeding for them in the loch. So, but a lot of guys reporting that they're getting skinny trout this year.
If you're a fly tyer or want to get into fly tying, then this is for you. Ireland on the Fly have teamed up with Fulling Mill to give away a box of fly tying materials with free shipping to one lucky listener each week. With more than 1,400 products to choose from, each perfectly packed by hand, their new range of fly tying material warrants closer inspection. The range of dubbing materials is comprehensive to cover whatever you want to dress, from tiny dries to saltwater streamers. It is all there for you, with some great UV mixes as well. From the individually preened marabou feathers to the top secret treatment applied to their new ultra dry yarn, the whole range is packed with standout new products, all generously served up for your benefit in a neat array of colours and sizes. From Zonkers to CDC, bucktail to deer belly, they've done a fantastic job. So, to begin with a chance of winning the £50 worth of material, just answer the following question. Name one of the feeder rivers on Lough Neagh. Email your answer to info@irelandonthefly.com and we'll announce the winner on next week's show. And congrats to Brendan Hamrock, who was last week's winner. Congrats, Brendan, and we'll be in touch. Les, if I can go back to you, I don't want to be the doom merchant, but is it possible that could the lake be killed with this?
There's no doubt about it. You mentioned Lough Neagh. When I was a young student, I went down to Lough Neagh with the pig industry pumping pig slurry into the tributaries of Lough Neagh. And I went into the cafes where they were showing the prize fish. There was 120,000 prize trout in Lough Neagh.
That was the survey at the time, I remember. Yeah.
The industry just about wiped it out, and the government got straight onto it. Perhaps a little late, but they put 20 million gallons of pig slurry a year into trucks and moved it out of the catchment area and took the load off the lake. And then there was a concentrated effort to improve the water quality, and that seems to have worked. And then there was a restocking exercise, and now there's some kind of Lough Neagh normality, if you will. Common sense has been restored, and some of the big units have closed down now, of course, with Lough Neagh, we've got two problems. One of the problems is the amount of phosphorus going into the lake, but the other problem is for 20 years we've lost sight of all the manure lining the bed of the lake, and now the latest research, and it's somewhat out of date. It's 34 years of research of data, which was mainly acquired by the freshwater lab at Trad Point, but unfortunately that closed 20 years ago. So there's
right.
There's
20 years missing now.
We've been blinded. We have no data, and it's really critical, this, because now we've got this invasive species, the mussel, the zebra mussel. But how did it look in, say, 1981? The loch was getting cloudier and cloudier. It was really difficult to see anything beyond a few inches into the water column.
You worked on the loch, didn't you, around then with Professor Brian Wood, wasn't it?
Yeah, I worked in the freshwater laboratory from 1981, and I published my PhD thesis in 1990. And my job was not to study the lake as such. My colleagues did that. My job was to solve the problem, which was, how do we remove phosphorus from agricultural effluents? And we did that by building an anaerobic digester at the monastery at Port Glenone, the Bethlehem Abbey digester. And we proved there that if you digest the slurry and then separate it, that 71% of the phosphorus ends up in a little pile of cake, and the liquor it only has a small fraction of the phosphorus. So you can then, as we did in Bethlehem Abbey, we sold this cake as a dungstead to be used instead of dung. And it was a sellout product. It just did wonderful things in the gardens. It was a peat substitute. And we can do that now. And actually, there are 60 anaerobic digesters in Northern Ireland doing that. But this is a big problem, because what the recent research showed was if we were to remove, say, 2 units of phosphorus out of the lake, we wouldn't get a response in the lake water of 2 units worth of reduction, because 1 unit is coming out of the bed of the lake because it's accumulated for the last 20 years. Well, the bottom line is it will take 20 years to clean this lake if we start this year. So there is no quick fix. But if we don't start this process of reducing phosphorus and nitrates into Lough Neagh, then the situation will go from hypertrophic to, well, basically you've just got a septic tank with an open lid, and it'll each year there is a kind of lottery. It's a bit like Russian roulette, really. You know, if you've got 1 phosphorus unit in your revolver, you know, you can spin the chamber and there's a pretty good chance you won't get a bloom of algae. Well, we've got 8 units in the revolver, and there's only two spare slots. And that's what creates this dangerous situation of, well, we're playing Russian roulette with the loch right now. And this year, a number of observations. One, the chironomid flies crashed. The population has just crashed. Everybody's noticed it. The algae obviously developed in places till it was like mashed potato, green, emerald green mashed potato, 3 or 4 inches thick, maybe more. So this is not conducive to any of the microorganisms that are living in the lake. Now, it's not just big fish. Big fish eat little fish. Little fish, things like Daphnia, the water fly, and mysis, and Gammarus, the little shrimp, and these smaller organisms are the ones that are oxygen sensitive. And one of the problems is we are now in the situation where the algae, which is an enormous biomass, I mean, you can see it from satellites. The whole loch is streaked green, and all of that biomass will die. It's started to die now. We can see it. The water is clearing around Ballyronan. It's still being, surface algae are still being pushed up into Toonbridge, for instance, but that's just a wind direction thing. The big mass of algae is settling down to the bed of the loch, and then it will die. And then it will the bacteria that eat that algae as it rots will consume oxygen, and you'll get an anoxic layer on the bottom of the lake. Now, that's where all the bloodworms are. That's your fish food. And so there are, if the freshwater laboratory existed now, there would be a boat going out every week testing the loch at this critical time. But we don't have a laboratory, I'm afraid. And we do have the Lough Neagh Partnership, and they have a patrol boat. But when the freshwater laboratory was alive, a boat full of students would go for 24 hours without sleep, sampling 114-kilometer perimeter of the lake from surface to depth, and boxes of samples. Then they would be brought into the laboratory, and they would be analyzed. The fish would be measured, the gill. There's a bone for measuring the age of the fish.
Yeah.
Gills checked for parasites, all of that kind of stuff, and then detailed reports would be written. So there's like 3 weeks of solid work for each of these surveys, and a week to rest and recuperation, I guess.
I think just what you said, the whole thing there is just such a sobering thought. What you said, I mean, like just going on there. First of all, the research hasn't been done on it for 20 years when it was done so diligently before. But also, is what you said there, the time scale, and that's only if things happen now. I think that's. I won't say it's again. I just say it's a sobering thought. It has to be done now. I mean, Seamus, as an angler, and I'm an angler too. How do you feel when you hear all this?
It's very sad. It's very sad. But Les was talking about the studies that was carried out on the loch for different things. But there's also a AFB the AFB report on a baseline study of the fish population, which was produced in 2015, Tom, and they commissioned the report, and there was a PhD student, Kevin Keenan, did along with Professor Prudhoe. Paulo Prudhoe, and they published a report in 2015, and they said that Lough Neagh, the abundance of Lough Neagh trout was phenomenal. But they found out was that there was the loch is renowned for the occurrence of different types of trout, including dolphin. So it's a distinct large trout that appears unique to Lough Neagh, but they are fit to map back to all the tributary rivers. And at this time, we on the Moyola had a hatchery up until about 2013. We were producing maybe 40,000 dolphin fry per year, maybe 40 to 50,000 salmon fry per year. But whenever Professor Prudhoe's report came out, what they found was that the genetics of these dolphin were right, not even to the river, that every tributary in the river. So we could be lifting, we could have lifted 30 dolphin at a particular weir on our river, electrofishing, took them up, we had a hatchery, kept them there until it was time to strip them. But, we were lifting a cock dolphin and a hen dolphin. How do we know that they are supposed to be, Mother Nature didn't put those two together. So,
yeah,
the studies showed us that we might have been lifting a cock dolphin from one tributary river and a hen dolphin from a different tributary river. And the science around it was the genetics around it. Like, not even, let's say a fish was heading to the 6 Mile River. Well, never up the 6 Mile River, and went off up a wee burn. And that they found out that up this wee burn, that the genetics of those strain of dolphin were different from a different wee tributary. So it was that. And also, our chairman at the time, Philip McGuire, had been down in Screed hatchery, and the guys down there were telling him they tried it with a sea trout, and it didn't. It failed, and he came back to us. And then whenever we found out that, how do we know? Well, we thought we were doing so much good putting all these dolphins back into Lough Neagh, but really we decided to close the hatchery and let nature do its work.
That's very interesting, and Darren and myself have been talking about that. And we hope to do a program on that further down the line about hatcheries and what the scientific research has come up with, and hope to have a couple of people talking on it. But it's very interesting that you should say that even within the Moyola, like you said to me, there's one of the tributaries is the Grange, is it, or what is it?
Yeah,
and the Grange could have its own, and your hatchery was, let's say, below where the Grange came in.
Oh, our hatchery up in the headwater, so
So, but you could be intercepting different strains of dolphin.
Yeah.
But it just goes to show what it's back to Lough Neagh again, and what a wonderful host it is to all these, to the dolphin.
Yeah.
And how important it is, that these species have evolved, since the last ice age or whatever, have evolved to become as what we know them as the dolphin, and such a fantastic resource and just wonderful part of nature. And this is the scary part, and this is why we're talking about it.
what we haven't touched on there, Tom, really is the invasive zebra mussels. And they're the reason that the water is clear. I'm not going to say the water is but what they're a filter feeder. They're taking in the dirty water, they're secreting something else which isn't good. The water's clear because like Lough Neagh now, Les will probably tell you roughly. I don't know if you know how many zebra mussels we have, but they talking to the commercial men. I have friends who are commercial fishermen, and the eel fishing in Lough Neagh has gone. Still a few eel men, but really the eel fishing is gone. They what they call it? They're telling us that the eels on Lough Neagh are now emaciated. So the feeding. If this they want to get the eels, they've had to spread out now because there's no feeding for them anymore. Possibly that's why we're getting skinny dolphin this year. And it's just a sad. When you see the impact it's having on the commercial fishery, and they're going to have thereafter now they're fishing for the roach and the perch and as Les says, the pollen there
and the pollen.
Yeah. So, but no, I'm hoping it's not, because the thing about, I'll just use our club, and you can say, well, what impact has the dolphin decline? If there's a dolphin decline, what impact will have it in our club? So from a fishing point of view, it'll impact our fishing. We've got brown trout, we've got a few salmon, but our club in particular is a community. And as we have a fantastic community. We're integrated into the community. We do so much. We give so much back into the community each year. We run cross community events for kids. Over the winter, we have our own wee rainbow lake, which we put in rainbow trout into it. We bring along. Last year we brought along the guys. And I know you talked about it there in one of your previous podcasts with Dennis Goulding. Dennis mentioned Joseph Owens and Damien Devine, the guys from Frog.
That's right, the lads.
Those lads come down to us and helped us with these kids. The fantastic outfit, and we're now running. We're now allowing them to down our wee lake over the winter to run a league of a round of their winter league, and they bring on youth for the Irish team. I know you've talked a lot about the Irish youth team. So these are the guys. Some of the guys up around this area that are doing that. So we, with their help, there's a whole community-based club we have, and we do a lot of charity events. So if the dolphin decline, if the membership declines, everything we do. Last year we did a competition, and the angling community really donated 30 fantastic prizes to our competition. We raised £3,500 for the Northern Ireland Air Ambulance, and that's just anglers.
Brilliant. Yeah.
So it's all that. We do a lot of 4 or 5 charity competitions a year. That if the dolphin decline and our anglers decide not to bother coming along, we can't afford to rent. We rent the river. So so what happens there? So it's a whole community-based club that might just go into decline.
The whole knock-on effect. I mean, you just said something there. I mean, that's just one example of what could happen. The knock-on effect and the good that you do. Let's say within the club, for the youths, for any cross community things that you run, and the knock-on effect of, let's say, losing your fishing, the club will suffer a lot. It will never be as strong, and a lot of these events that you run and the monies that you raise will be lost. So I mean, I've often said it here. I mean, local clubs can do so much good for their communities. Get everybody involved, and I can't speak too highly of other clubs all over Ireland on what they do for the
Thomas, that's all volunteers, voluntary work.
Volunteers.
Fantastic over the winter time whenever we're not fishing on the river. You're sort of, for me anyway, I'm listening and I'm thinking to myself, what can I do? What can I do to help? And you reach out to the local community and say, what can we do? We also we also run 3 duck races every year for primary. So the primary schools come. The primary schools come along. They sell 1,000 ducks to all the parents and the parent they come along and they come along the river, throw the ducks in. Our guys are standing at the bottom of a pool with land nets, and the first 3 ducks come down with 3 names on it, and they give it back to the school. The school then have prizes then for the kids. The kids love it. You see the kids again. We simple things.
Brilliant.
And that's us connecting again there with those schools, with the youth, and getting that connection at an early age.
Brilliant. No, that's great to hear. That's great to hear. And you know what? It's nice to end up on something positive now after that all we were talking about there. There's so much more I'd love to talk about. And maybe another time, Les, I'd love to talk a bit more about the anaerobic digesters, but that's for another evening, another time. I'm going to wrap it up here now. But listen, guys, every time we have somebody on the show for the first time, we do ask them a question. Now, Seamus, I'm definitely asking you. Don't know if we asking Les, but Les could be thinking about it while I'm asking you. But as on the podcast, we ask all our guests, what is your most memorable fish on the fly? So, Seamus, take it away.
It's a classic. I thought about this today, and under my head, I thought he might ask me this question. So I'm going to name him Alcon Hamill, great fisherman, and he was getting married, and he said, "You'll come on the stag night with me. We're going to Glasgow." And I thought, no, I don't do that sort of thing. I had to nicely refuse, and I says, no, I can't do that. And he says, I'll tell you what, how about me and you, because we work together, we'll take a half day in the fin. And I says, yep, we'll do that. So we booked it for I was Thursday, actually we put it down, just to be, yep, June the 6th, 2019. So we had booked the beat on the fin, the graveyard. You ever on the graveyard in the fin?
No, I've actually never fished the fin. I've only looked over it at different bridges, as every fisherman does.
I never actually fished the graveyard beat. So we booked it anyway, maybe a week in advance. And the night before, there was a massive big flood. And we had to work that morning, that Thursday morning. And I checked the gauge, and it was massive flood on it. I was on at 6 o'clock. An hour and a half later, I looked at it again, and I think the water had dropped maybe 1.5 feet. And then I started calculating out. We were on half day from 2 o'clock to dark. I started calculating. So on the graveyard, I was told 2.5 to 3 foot is perfect. So I started doing my calculations, and I said to him, I said, Alcon, there's a chance here we could hit this just perfect. 2 o'clock, this thing could be sitting at 3 foot. And it just clocked down that. And we drove up the road, got to the fin, and the two guys were on in the morning session, got nothing because the water's too high. And just as we stepped in for 2 o'clock, it was 3 foot. And I stepped into the graveyard. Alcon says, I'm going up to the Ivy Bridge to fish the V. And both of us had never fished this beat before. So I thought, well, this is the graveyard. I'd step in here, and didn't even know where to get in that. Went up anyway, got into the river and come down and started fishing. And quite a push of water on. But I walked down maybe 50, 60 yards, and next thing, down into a hole. And with the power of the water, it maybe a hole about 6 foot sort of wide, but it pushed me across it. I thought, God, that. I've since learned that if you step out another 6 foot, you miss this hole. So once I told people about this, if I had stood on out into the river, I would have been past it. But I was fishing a Calvin shrimp that I tied myself, jib fly on a single hook, and next thing into this fish. And this thing just took off, Tom, down the river, and just this froth on top of the water, unbelievable. And half an hour of absolute agony because I was fighting the fish. And then I'd one of them big McLean way nets. And every time I got the fish right to my feet, and I thought it was a big bar of silver, and got it right in beside me. And I was in way over my chest, right up deep. And every time I put the net in, Tom, the power of the water was washing the net away. I couldn't even hold it. So eventually I got the fish over the net 3 or 4 times and says to myself, I'm going to lose this fish. I said, I'm going to lose it. I don't deserve to get this fish. But eventually I got it into the net, and it was a 15-pound salmon. And it was oh my God, I couldn't believe it. And I just sat and watched it in the net and videoed it in the net, managed to set my phone on the riverbank, got a photograph of it, and away he went. And it was that was definitely my best memory.
You'll never forget that one.
10 minutes later, I got another one, about 7 pound. And then Alcon come down, and I told him the whole story. And just like my mate earlier on was telling you about it in the boat, whenever Alcon was telling Alcon the story, he got nothing. And you could see his face just changing. That face of, I hit you. And we had an hour and a half journey. with an hour and a half journey back there.
I couldn't believe that another fisherman would do that to another fisherman. I don't know. No,
an hour and a half journey down the road. It wasn't much staying on the way home. But I think after about 7 months, we started talking again. And now we can laugh about it. So well, that's certainly my
7 months. 7 months, he got over it surprisingly quick.
He got over it with 7 months. So when you catch a fish, a fly you've tied yourself, it makes it twice as good.
There's something about it. There is something about it.
The fly has now been retired. It's in a wee box of his own, just in case.
That's it. You want to put it in a frame now and put it up on the wall?
Well, I actually got that photograph nicely done up, and I meant to put everything up. Just haven't got around to that yet. But I'm sure Alcan will be listening. I'll be sending Alcan on the link, and he'll get a mention. They'll be laughing at this podcast.
Good man. So, Les, you've had time to think?
My best fish has to be the first fish I ever caught.
Yeah,
as a child. I was very competitive with my younger brother. And he and I stayed with my grandmother on the Mighty D in Llangollen. There's a rapids, several sets of rapids coming through the town, and there's a huge run of salmon, and they're spectacular. I mean, there's just raining salmon, but in the wrong direction, going up the this mighty rapids. And so we'd seen a few of these, and my brother said, I am going to get the official fishing gear. And so he went to a shop, and he bought all this fishing gear, and he set off to fish himself a salmon. And we chose a spot at the bottom of the rapids in an old mill race. Near an old mill, and it had been taken over by a leather working company, and there were maggots everywhere, sheep skins and cattle skins, and heaven only knows what. It stunk to high heaven, and I think it was quite attractive to the fish, actually, because where the water was ponding, there seemed to be a lot of activity. Anyway, my brother couldn't catch a fish with his great gear, and I went down to see him, give him a bit of support, and or just to laugh at him, I forget which. But then I got the a little piece of nylon fishing line, and I pulled it in. There's a hook on the end. And I found a stick, and I found a worm and a couple of those maggoty grub things, and basically just threw it in the pool. And there was about 10 seconds, and then boom, I got a fish. And the joy that gave me, I can't describe. Mm-hmm. We spoke about
brilliant.
Just that connection with the water and the fish and the maggots and the worm.
You never forgot it. And tell me this: did your brother not talk to you for 7 months?
No. We used to argue all the time. That once an hour.
Says you didn't need the fish for that.
No, I didn't need the fish. No, it was a wonderful day, and it really taught me about the total peace and relaxation that you can get just by listening to the roar of water, watching the salmon leaping, and just getting involved with nature. It was fantastic. I love that place.
Yeah, it's something special, all right. It really is. And you haven't forgotten it. Guys, that's great. Really good to have you on. Thanks a million. Thanks so much for joining us here, and just want to get this across to everybody and to let more people be aware of it. Let's hope that something starts now and we can start reversing what has happened to it.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
Our thanks to Dr. Les Gornall and Seamus Donnelly for joining us on the show. Don't forget to rate, review and follow the Ireland on the Fly podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast from.